Hey everyone, my name is George, but if you're coming from Reddit, you probably know me as Dagonius. Last week, I posted what I called a game environment created in Foundry. It was for a Curse of Strahd game I plan on running in the near future, and you guys seem to really like it. Since then, a lot of you have requested a tutorial slash walkthrough of the files. So here I am, and I really hope this video helps you get the most out of your Foundry experience. Well, let's get started then. And the first thing I want to mention is that this is some extra work that might not be deemed necessary, and that's okay. If you think this isn't for you or your group, feel free to ignore whatever I say. I am a crafter DM at heart, and since my group migrated to virtual tabletoping due to the lockdown and all of the safety measures we have in place because of COVID, I've been trying to find a way to somehow keep that crafter spark alive. Last year, we decided we were going to use Tabletop Simulator, but it turned out it was a lot harder to prep sessions there, so earlier this year, we made the switch over to Foundry, and we're never looking back, really. Foundry turned out to be a perfect tool for us. It is quite simple, yet you can still accomplish a lot with it. And since I got it, I've been trying to learn more and more. So, going back to my point, you don't have to do any of this. I did it because it was a nice way I found to keep my players engaged for longer. Spending hours on end staring at the computer might be too cumbersome for some, as it was for two of my players who were actually neurodivergent. Now, if you still want to do this, let's take a look at what I've got so far, which is pretty close to being done. We have first a home page. You can see that there's some subtle movement here, rolling fog, and the menu here. And since we are at this page, I can close this. Since we are here, I think we can talk about the before you start making your own game environment. And I want you to ask yourself, what do your players need? And the answer might vary depending on what you're running. Since I'll be running Curse of Strahd, there are a few things that I want them to have access to that are specific to this particular campaign, like, for instance, the Fortunes of Ravenloft. Besides that, I have created a character tab, and this is for them to be able to reference their companions' backstories whenever they feel like it. This will be just a regular journal entry that they can click and it will open up. They can read it. It will be accessible to everyone, so if a player wants to keep notes to himself, he or she will have to use the secret mode when typing. Okay, and after that we have the journal page, which quite frankly, it looks more complicated than it actually is. Players will be able to browse through all of these pages individually. So you can see there is interaction between all of the pages. And they will have access to their own personal notes. So if they click their own notes, they will be able to see it. Again, this is just a plain journal entry, so if they want to keep secrets, if they want to write down notes that no one else can see, they will have to use the secret mode here, which is under custom. They just click on secret, and whatever's written like that will be available only to them and the DM. Okay, so they will be able to click each and every one of the notes here. They will also be able to browse through each of these pages. And at first we have these objectives page, which is where they will post all of their objectives, of course. They also have the NPCs page where they will have all of the characters they meet displayed to them. So they will come here, they will click the character, they will read up on what they've written about them or what they know about them. If it's just a picture, it'll be a picture. If they know the name, there will be the name. And it depends on who they meet along the way. Then we have the lore page where they will be able to stash every piece of lore they acquire that is relevant to this campaign. They will be able to click it just like they are able to click those player notes. There's nothing there yet because I think they will come up as the campaign goes. And one thing you can notice is that everything is clickable, everything is interactable, and some people will probably prefer to click on the page, right? If they click on the page, they will go back and forth and it will rotate. So this looks complicated. It actually isn't. The plane of the sound, you can hear the flipping of the pages, you can hear the clicking in the menu. None of this is too difficult. Then we have a simple map section, which once the campaign starts will probably be completely black and players will reveal parts of a map as they go. They'll also be able to access map markers for the places they've been to. All of those things will be available to them. I chose to have the full picture here just so you guys could see the map of Barovia in its full glory. And after that we have that specific one to the Curse of Strahd, which is called Fortunes of Ravenloft. And if you're familiar with the campaign, some key elements of the story are left up to fate. So before you run the adventure, you have to draw 5 cards from a Taroka deck to determine the specifics of each of those key elements. And this page is where players will be able to reference back to the card reading. Every page has its own home button, which of course takes them straight back to the home page. And before we move over to Photoshop, so I can show you all of the files and how it's set up, you really got to plan ahead. Think of what needs interaction and what you're gonna have to change or update frequently, because that will tell you what needs to be static and what needs to be its own separate entity. So now let's move on to Photoshop so I can show you the files. So here we are. When it comes to preparing the file in Photoshop, I always like to start with a dark gray background and the reference, which is just a screenshot of Foundry's interface, both for the software itself and for the login screen. So we have both of them here, just so I can have the measurements right. So this is what I do with them. I just create some guidelines for me to actually start designing. After that, I decide on what I want with the game environment, and I usually like to use a gradient. Honestly, this is just a picture of Strahd, which had the colors I wanted, and then I just blurred them with Gaussian blur. And that was it for the background. After that, I decided on what images I was going to use for this. And I wanted each of the pages to have a different image. You don't have to do this. You can have just one single image for the whole thing. But for me, I chose this for the Castle Ravenloft for the home page and the characters. you can see that this is honestly just a Castle of Ravenloft picture. I flipped it and I color corrected it a few times, and there is a mask just to make sure that this is a nice transition over to the background here. So this was the Castle of Ravenloft. I have a few others for the journal page. This is the Barovian Road, and this is Strahd for the Fortunes of Ravenloft, and this is Baba Lysaga's hut for the maps. So this is what I have, and I have some discarded ideas to here. These are the images, and then I decided on how the menu was going to look. You can have it just a line on top. I decided to go for let me take the box out. For a simple look, this is what it looks like. It's very simple. It is comprised of the dividers, which I have the top and the bottom, and just a black shadow behind it so the text can pop, and the text unselected. So this is just when nothing is selected, the text is going to be white, and if it eventually is selected, we can go ahead and go with the characters, and I will go to text selected and have the characters here. So you can see this. Now I have my journal, and this is how it works. I just toggle them on and off depending on what I need to have selected. And then I have the box. So let's say I have my characters. You see why there is a white background to it. This is because the characters is still active. That's why I have to switch them on and off. So let's say I have the character page. I wanted a box, I wanted a frame, I wanted it to feel gothic in style and maybe be a throwback to those old school gothic games like Diablo and Castlevania. So I chose this box, which was made by Samuel Thompson. You can find him on ArtStation. I really love his art style. This is a really good looking frame, and you can see I've made just a few modifications to it because I wanted the frame to be separate from the background. So I just created two different smart objects. You can see here that this is the frame with just a mask, with a layer mask. And the other one is the opposite of this. So you can see that this is how it works. I wanted them to be separate because I really wanted to be able to control the opacity of this layer without touching on the opacity of the frame itself. This is why I separated them. So this is the box. This is the main menu. And I forgot the home button here. You can just toggle the home button and this should be okay. So every page will have this home button here. And then we have the floating assets. Everything that's here inside this folder, the floating assets, are going to become tiles once they are imported to Foundry. They are all going to be imported as PNGs so they can have the transparency once we have them as styles. So the first thing I have is the character frame. This is actually from Smite, and you can find this in their wiki page. I just have you can see here, I have a few color correction layers just to get the look I want with this. So this is it for the character frame. This is going to be exported as a simple PNG so I can edit them over in Foundry. Then I have the journal. The journal is a bunch of things just put together. I have the journal A, the first page, which is the objectives page. I have the NPCs page, and I have the lore page. And if I open it up, let's open the objectives. You can see that it's comprised of a few things. These are the notes. I have the text and the icons for the notes. You can do this as you want to. Whatever you want to do with this is, it's honestly up to your imagination and your creativity, what you need to have at your table. So we have the objectives. These are the headings. So objectives and personal notes. We have a little divider here. This divider is from Hollow Knight. It's not mine. So this is one of the things where it's really nice to have a good visual library. So just get yourself some references, look at some art from different people, and you should get inspired by lots of different things and maybe come to something that looks cohesive. So these are the headings, and then we have the image itself, which is just the text, the divider, and the image here. I do not know the artist. I got it from Google. I think this might be from the oldest editions of Ravenloft, of the module I6, if I'm not mistaken. And then we have the journal asset itself. We can see that it is also a lot of different things. We have the icons. We have the image itself, which is a smart object. And you can come here to the smart object and take a look at the mask that was to create this. This thing is just a Frankenstein of different pieces pieced together. So we have the bookmarks, we have the writings, we have the journal itself, and this is the final look. I just have it color corrected, and I just want to make sure that everything looks cohesive. After the journal, we have the map of Barovia. Very simple, still using the frames that were designed by Samuel Thompson. This is an awesome frame that I found. Finally, the Fortunes of Ravenloft. And remember, all of this is going to become a tile at the end. Finally, I like to, actually not quite done yet. I like to just give some noise, to put a noise layer on top. It just makes everything work together. So everything is blended. It feels like they belong together. Everything belongs together. So then we have the logo. This is Ravenloft's logo and Curse of Strahd's logo. This one is not the original one. This one is from Neverwinter, the game. So yeah, they had a module update for Ravenloft when Curse of Strahd came along, and they designed this beautiful logo, which I took. And this is actually it. If I want to have the login screen, I will take everything out and add the logos for the login screen according to my reference, of course. So I have my reference here, and this is what it looks like. What it looks like once I have the reference on. All right, so now we're going to go back to Foundry, and I'm going to tell you how to integrate these pieces together to make sure that the whole thing is cohesive. Okay, so we are back here into Foundry. This is a new file, this is a new world, and I'll show you how to create the pages, how to set up everything, and the modules you are going to need for this are Trigger Happy, Lock View, and FX Master. And so these are the modules that you really need for this. The rest of it is just core Foundry. So the first thing you want to do, let's create our home button, or home screen rather. And then you come to the scenes tab, you just create a new scene. You can call it the home scene. And there are a few things that you have to set up here. The first thing is accessibility. You can have this to all players, and if you check this box, it will show up into the navigation bar up the top. So you decide if you want this or not. This is the navigation name. If you don't put anything here, it will just copy over the scene name for this. So for this one, I want it to be called home. I'll just redo it. And I will choose the background image. I have Ravenloft here, and the UI assets, the main menu, and here we have the Ravenloft home. I can see, well, it's a little bit hard to see, but it is the one we want. And every one of these pages are 1920 by 1026. What I like to do here is to grab the black as the background color, because I think it blends better if something happens, if maybe a screen is not able to display this correctly, then it will get the background color from it. The grid type, this is actually important. Even though we're going to go gridless for this, the grid size matters, because once you're placing actors into it, it will take into consideration the size of the grid in pixels in order to adapt the size of your token, of your actors. So I always make this as low as possible, which is 50. You can toy around with the numbers here. You can see what fits best for you. For me, is 50 pixels for the grid size. You have to remember to turn off token vision. Otherwise, your players are going to see a black screen. And for the rest of this, we are going to leave it as it is. The only thing we are going to change is Actually, we're not going to touch the lock view just yet. I'm going to show you how to set it up first. So change scene dimensions, and we are here. It's this simple. The only thing is that your players can still zoom in and out. They can move this around. And honestly, this is not exactly what I would like to see. Right? I don't want them to be able to move this around. I want them to have this as a normal UI where they cannot move things around. So this is where the lock view comes into play. Once you install the module, you're going to have to make sure that you configure that module. So you go to configure settings, and under the module settings, you're going to see that the lock view has a user configuration here. This will not work if you don't have more than one player, more than just you as a GM. So when you press escape, you're going to go and configure players, make sure that you add another player, right? So I'm going to delete this player just so you can see what happens when I don't have a player. So it loaded, beautiful. I can still move things around. My lock view is in place. So you can see that when I go to configure settings, module settings, this is all working as intended. If I go to my scene settings, you can see that there's a lock view place here. I can go ahead and lock pan, lock zoom. So I don't want them to zoom in and out, and I don't want them to pan around. Auto scale, I always set to horizontal fit because that's what most screens will be able to do. So horizontal fit, then that's it. And you can save changes. And this updated. And of course it worked because I had a player before. But if it doesn't work for you, and it might not work for you at first, you're going to have to come under this is probably what's gonna happen. Let me just reload the application here. Yeah, this is probably what's gonna happen. You're not gonna be able to set it to control to pan, even though in your settings you're saying that the panning of this is locked, and the zooming in here is also locked. So we're going to save changes here, and we are going to go to configure settings, module settings, and under user configuration, you're going to have to make sure that control is set to active. However, if this is your first time doing this, it will probably not work. Okay, it will probably still have this, maybe even if you reload the application. Yeah, you can see that even though I clicked on control, so that means that the lock view is controlling my view from the GM side, it is not working. What you need to do in order to solve that, you're going to configure players, you're going to create an additional user, and save and return. Once you have this, it will still not work. You are going to have to go to configure settings, module settings, user configuration, and make sure that your screen is also set to control. Then you can save changes, and now you saw that snapping happen. So that's the module working for you. Now you cannot pan and you cannot zoom in or out of this. So this is the first step. This is already good enough. Okay? So what you want to do next is to create we're going to create the journal page too. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go to our scene, create scene, and we're going to call this journal. All right. So again, all players, I'll leave that in the navigation bar. Journal, the file path is going to be back here, UI assets, main menu, and it's going to be the journal. Select file, again, 1920 by 1026, a black screen, and now you can just go ahead and do everything that you had done before. Turn off token vision, make sure that lock pan, lock view, and horizontal fit are all selected. Save changes, yes. And now your journal is already set. Nothing to be done. You cannot pan, you cannot zoom. And this is it. All right. So most of it is done, right? But you remember there were some roiling mists all around. And honestly, this is done really easily with lights. You are going to want to create a light source. Double click it. Just select the color for it. I really like this crimson red sort of thing. And the light animation type is going to be the ghostly light. You can have this, what is the other one? Swirling fog, too. Actually, let's use the swirling fog because right now it looks hideous. It really doesn't look that great. If you have it here, you're gonna see that it's not the best thing it could be. So let's go to lights. We are going to start editing this. First, I want this to be a little bit more subtle. I want this to be just subtle, gentle movement. And this is quite over the top. So let's move the sliders down a bit, and this is already starting to look much better. You can, if this is a little bit too slow for you, you can go ahead and have it a little bit faster. But as you can see, this already looks a lot better. This crimson fog happening here. I have another one for the actual fog here, which is just a white-ish kind of gray fog. You can have the swirling fog here. Turn down the animation speed. Make sure that it is not as intense. And you have the fog. And you can continue messing around with the lights in order to create those subtle movements in the frame. For mine, I also had a light source here for the castle windows, which was just an orange sort of light that flickered like a torch. So you can see that it is now flickering. So yeah, those are small touches that you can do just to make sure that the scene feels alive. After you do that, there is another thing with the effects master. If you want to go this way, this route, so effect controls, and then we have the weather controls. I like to use embers, bring the density way down, the speed way down, and the rest of it really it's just adjusting as you go. This is a little bit too much for my taste, so maybe bring down the density, bring down the speed. Actually, the speed is quite okay, but I want to bring down the scale as well. And now you have a more subtle approach at embers. You can see some of them floating around, and I think subtlety is key here. All right, so my homepage is done. When we go to the journal, you can see that my journal is not here. And this is because it is supposed to be a tile. So let's go ahead and take a look at how we're going to do this. So first thing, you're going to come to tile controls and place tile. You can just place a normal tile here, and you're going to select your, this is the menu floating assets, journal assets, empty journal A. So this is my file. And if I update the tile right now, you're going to see that this is with the wrong proportions. So what you're going to want to do is double click it and make sure that you know exactly what are the dimensions of your tile. So for me, it's 945 by 680. So 945, 680. And now it should update with the proper size. You just place it wherever you want. I like to just lock it so I don't accidentally move it. And there we go. we have our journal page for this first one. Of course, I want to be able to click everything and go to my NPCs page. So what I'm going to do is go to the scene, and I'll duplicate this journal page. And in this journal page copy, I will put that in the navigation. I'll call this journal NPCs. This is going to be called journal is okay, or I can just delete it so it takes the name of the scene, and I can save this, and that's it. You have 2 pages, but they're the same. But since this is a tile, you don't have to change and switch everything around. You just come here and you just select a different tile. Now you have a different tile happening. If you want to create another one, this is what you're going to do. All right. As of now, nothing is interactable, right? I cannot click anything. And this is where Trigger Happy comes into play. Trigger Happy is an amazing module that lets you set up some triggers from actors. So when you click on an actor, or maybe when your token moves over an actor, you can have it do things. It can either load a new scene, it can send text to the chat box, you can do a lot of different cool things with it. So to set up Trigger Happy, the first thing you have to do is to create a folder called Trigger Happy. And after you create that folder, you're going to create your triggers inside this folder. So I'm just going to create a... Oh, sorry. This is not the right place. Remove folder. You should do that in your journal entry. I was doing that on my items directory. So go to your journal entries, create a folder named Trigger Happy, create folder, and inside you're going to create your triggers. Okay, and this is just a regular journal entry. So the way it works is that whenever you click on an actor, you're going to make something happen. So first we need the actors. So let's create all of the actors we need, really. Here's my actor. Let's create actor. The first one is journal. I like to have them as NPCs. Let's call it journal A. Actually, no, let's call it journal. Just journal. And you're going to see why in a second. So non-player character, create actor. Perfect. So you have your actor here. If you drag it, you're going to see that it stays here. And yeah, when I click it, nothing happens. But if I go to my Trigger Happy folder, what I can do is write a line of command that will tell me that whenever I click my token, and what is the name of my token? It's just journal. Whenever I click this this token, it will bring me the normal NPCs pages. All right, so whenever I click the token journal, it will bring up the scene journal. Okay, so now it's saved, and whenever I click this token, we go to the journal page. It is this simple. Now, to set this up so it looks like a button, we have to make a few changes to it, make a few adjustments. First thing that we are going to do is, right now I'm going to delete this one. We're going to work on the actor here. First thing, I want this to be just a simple invisible token. I have an invisible token PNG here, and now it has absolutely nothing to it. It's just an invisible thing that I can place anywhere I want, and I will just adjust it to make sure that it is the size I need it to be. So 0.5, and probably is going to be like a 2. The other way around. 2 and 0.5. So now I'm able to just place it. If you want to be very accurate with this, all you need to do is to come and go into position and position it through the X and Y coordinates. Perfect. So now your token is here, and whenever you click the token, you go to the journal page. Nice. Now I want to set up a home button. So you can duplicate your tokens. Okay, so let's duplicate this, and this will be my home. One thing you have to be careful when you're duplicating your tokens is that you go onto the prototype token and you make sure that you have a different, the same token name as you have for the actor, because this is what Foundry, what Trigger Happy is going to look for. It's going to look for home in the token name. Okay, so let's update token. This is it. And I'm going to put it here. And this is going to be just maybe 1.5 by this. This gives us this. So you can see that when I click it, nothing happens because I have to go to my Trigger Happy and edit my token journal. So the token that has the name home will bring me the home page. And this is it. I save it. Perfect. So if I click home, I'm going to go to home. If I click journal, I'm going to go to journal. I still need to bring up this other page. So I'm going to duplicate this, and I'll call this journal B, because this is exactly what I'm going. I'm going to the NPCs page. Remember that you have to change the token name. You update the token, you update journal B, and you just drop it here. Nothing happens when you click it. That's okay. I am going to duplicate it again, and you're going to see why in a second. And this one is going to be journal A. And remember to change the prototype name and update token. Perfect. So journal A is not going to be here. When I go to my journal B, I need to have my journal A here. You could use the same token that you used for the journal in the home page, but I don't want to do this because I want to set some sounds for this, for these specific buttons. So now that all of my tokens are set, I'm going to go to Trigger Happy, Triggers, and I am going to add my other tokens. So add token, and I'm going to just copy this and have this way, journal A and journal B. Right, these are the names. Make sure that you're spelling them the same way that you spelled them in the actor folder. And when I click on the journal A, I want this page to come up. When I click on the journal B, I want this page to come up. And you can save this and save entry. And this is all working. Now it should be all working. So you click here, you click here, you click home, and it should take you there. It's important to notice that we don't have a home here, so I just copied and pasted it. So now we have a home button here too. So we click home, journal. You can go around all of this, and there you go. You have some basic functionality. If you log in as the player right now, log out, let's go as player, and you're going to see that you can see the tiles. You can see them here, and that might be okay for you, but I don't like that. So how do we change it? Let me log out again. Let's go to Game Master. Let's go back to Game Master. If I put this as a invisible token, if I toggle the visibility, my players will not be able to see the tokens I have here. So let's select toggle visibility for everything. If I toggle the visibility for everything, my players, and I'm going to show you this. I'm going to log out and log in as a player. My player is not going to have access to it. Look, I can't see it, but I can't click it either because Trigger Happy defaults to a different type of trigger once you hide the tokens. So you have to make sure that you are telling Trigger Happy to work as a click event and not any other type of event. It has to be a click event. So let's go to our Trigger Happy, and here we are going to set before the scene, we're going to go at trigger, and we're going to tell it to look for the click trigger. So this is my trigger. Whenever I click it, I will go to scene. So now, if I save this, even though it is still invisible to my players, I can go as a player and have access to the click. So I can click it even though I don't see it as a button anymore. I don't see the clickable area of this. All right. We could be done here. I could call it a day, but there's another thing that I want to show you that I really think makes a difference when you're working with this. It's important that you have some sort of feedback when you click things. People like to click things and they like to know that they have clicked it. So just clicking something and go into a different place might look cool, but having the sound feedback is actually really, really cool to have. So what I'm going to do is I have a macro here that I created just for this, which is called UI play sound page turn. So I downloaded a page turning sound, and this is what it sounds like. All right, so every time that I click this, I want to play this sound for the person. And this is how the macro works. It is an audio helper macro. It is going to look for the turning page .wav sound in my Ravenloft soundtrack sound effects folders. This is the volume it is going to play at. It is going to play as soon as it is called. It's not going to loop because it's false. And this false here is really important. You can change this to true or to false if you're creating different macros. If you have this set to false, it means that the sound is going to play to that player only. This sound will not be broadcast. Only the player is going to be able to listen to that. If you turn it to true, every time a player runs this macro, executes this macro, they will broadcast that sound to everyone around. So everyone will hear, everyone will be able to listen to the sound of the page turning. I don't want this to happen. So you're probably going to have to change this macro in order to look for the things in your computer. Remember that this is after data, so this is the name of the world. This is the name of the folders that are in there, and you can see that the slashes are inverted. So you have to invert the slashes if you're using Windows, because it will probably look like this if you just copy and paste. All right, so how do we make Trigger Happy play that sound when I click the button? It's really simple. Trigger Happy is really simple. So you just go to Trigger Happy, triggers, you add the sound to journal A and journal B. And this is why I've made two different journal A entries. That's why I didn't use that one, because I don't want to have them play that sound when they click this. I want them to play that sound when they click the bookmarks. All right, and this is the second one, and we can save this. So now, when I click my journal A entry, my journal A actor, it is going to load my journal scene, and it is going to execute that macro, play sound, page turn. So I can save entry, and every time I click those buttons, it will play the turning sound for my player only. Right? This is not going to be broadcast because we made sure that it wasn't going to be this way. Right? So every time I click this, it's going to do the same. Trigger Happy is a very powerful module. You can do lots of things with it. And you're probably going to have lots of buttons, different buttons to click. You're going to have sounds on your buttons here. You're going to have things popping up when you open the objectives, when you go to maps, when you go to Fortunes of Ravenloft. And I hope you enjoy this, and I hope this was enlightening to some of you who are wondering how I was doing this. And as I told you, it's a lot simpler than it actually looks. I'm sorry this was this long. It was just too much to show. And yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this, and hopefully this will help you enhance your experience at the table. And thank you for everyone who upvoted my Reddit post and asked me to do this. I'll leave a link to the PNG files down in the description box. And if this helped you and you feel like helping out, I'll leave a button where you can donate whatever amount you feel like. That's absolutely not mandatory, but it surely is appreciated. I might set up a Patreon where I'll upload templates like this for your Foundry games. So if this is something you'd like to see, let me know in the comment section below.